Hey everybody, it's reading time. We are doing readings for the week ending March 4th. Last few days of February, first few days of March. Almost time for that equinox, which I'm really excited about. Okay, let's get to our readings here. We're going to start with Darcy. Really should have put more water in that before we started. Hi, Darcy. Okay, good news. Very good news for you and for me. Mercury is moving on. So Uranus is squared with Mercury on Sunday, and that's it. It's over. I mean, I can literally feel everything starting to move forward already. And on a technicality, from the time that I'm recording this that's like days from now. So I can still feel it already. Because having Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius and all the planets that came in right after Saturn finally moved out of that square. I mean, this year plus of this aspect just has felt like it was slowing things down more and more and more. It was just so difficult to move forward in so many different things. And so I really feel that as a weight being lifted off of everything, if that makes sense. For you and for me. So I'm really excited about that. Glad we got to share in it, I guess, although I prefer that we neither one of us went through it, but that's okay. Once that happens, Uranus is not really interacting with any other planets, which is also kind of a good thing, I think. So this week, Uranus's focus is very much on your support system. And I already know that you have a very sort of out of the box way of dealing with your support system. It's a lot of different types of people, not necessarily all the same people. They're not all necessarily connected with each other. Not to say that they're disconnected with each other or anything, but I kind of feel like part of this is a week where I know you work a lot, and I feel like spending some time with some of the people in that support system is really what you need. I think more than anything, I see a lot of work and a lot of sleep. And you need to do both of those things, obviously, but it's just I really feel like you're missing some people, if that makes sense. And to be able to reach out and make plans, even if it's just for a couple of hours, it makes all the difference in the world. Because the energy that you're putting into doing what you're doing every day it gets more and more exhausting when there is no change. So you want to go against your fixed sign nature and change things up a bit every now and then. I really feel that this week has a very good energy for that. The other thing that I'm sort of picking up here, which is interesting, is I'm being told to tell you that you get to plan your day off or someone plans it for you, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that there's somebody that's literally going out of their way to plan all your business, but I feel like lately it's sort of been like that. Either you make plans or somebody is going to wind up making them for you. And I feel like it's important this week that your day off, your plans are made by you and not necessarily somebody else. And somebody else making your plans isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just feel like there's been a few weeks where you've done things that, were not necessarily what you wanted to do, and you need a day where you're doing specifically what you want to do. So that's what I have for you, Darcy. And I'm going to pause really quick and get some more water because I am really going to need it today. That's much better. All right, moving on to Jeannette. So we are not exactly kicking off the week with the moon in Gemini, but kicking off the work week with the moon in Gemini, which is probably worse, actually. Mondays are bad enough without, moon action, but you're going to get moon action every Monday anyways. Doesn't matter where it is. The moon moving into conjunction with Mars on Monday when it comes into your sign focuses on trauma, focuses on old shit coming out. That is very unpleasant. Mars is already all about releasing anger. The moon just adds more emotion to that, which doesn't necessarily help situations, except the whole purpose of this is to release and let it go, and not necessarily continue this pattern of, if this hasn't happened, then blah, 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 then blah, 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 then blah, blah, blah. It's not helping you. Okay. It's, of course, if that didn't happen, then you wouldn't be here. And then you would, of course, that's true. But by focusing your energy on that, it's not actually helping you to move out of that space. And you have to move out of being angry about it in order to move out of that space. And I feel like some of this is frustration about just not being able to move forward as quickly as you would like to. But there's something else behind this too. This has to do with a relationship with somebody, and that somebody very well could be one of your daughters, specifically the younger one. Both planets move into a square with Saturn as well as the Sun. Saturn's focus is on long-term goals. The Sun's focus is on career. I know that you're trying to get back into a store, so this could cause some more delays, or this could be the reason why it seems like there's been a lot of delays with that lately. And just because that's there does not mean that nothing is going to happen. So I kind of feel like this week you are going to find out one way or another. And I'm getting there's good news and there's bad news. So I'm not sure what that necessarily means, but you have to take the bad with the good or vice versa. Or that will affect your ultimate decision overall, I guess, if that makes sense. Both planets also in a trine with Mercury, which is focused on long-term goals, as well as Venus, which is focused on your support system. So actually, there's a couple of things that come up with this long-term goal thing. Geminis aren't great. I mean, they're great at coming up with goals. They're not great at sticking with goals. And I think one of the biggest drawbacks to being an intellectual is that there's too many ideas and you just want to bounce from idea to idea to idea, and you never really get anywhere, if that makes sense. You're just kind of sort of spinning your wheels. So I think that spinning is sort of just going to be amplified a little bit this week in order for you to see where you're spinning, and you can slow down and focus on one thing at a time. And in terms of goals, you've got to write them down. I'm literally seeing a big old easel or whiteboard on a stand. You've got all your goals set out. You've got when you want to achieve these goals. You've got everything set out. And I know you can do this, and I know you're good at doing this. It's just doing it and sticking to it and not getting distracted by other things. It goes against your inner Gemini, and I totally get it, but you can still be that way and remain focused on your goals. It only takes a few minutes a day. Okay, so I kind of see like this frustration that you've been in is just getting to this point where it's like, okay, I got to do something. And even though this isn't going to fix my current situation, I still need to do this now so that I don't have this current situation again later on, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you this week. And I am going to move on to Connie. Yes, I'm going to move on to Connie. Hi, Connie. So we did kind of sort of talk about your schedule yesterday because that's when I talked to you yesterday. We are unfortunately ending the week with the moon in Leo. We're ending it and beginning next week as well, as the very end of the moon being in Leo happens on Sunday. So that kind of does suck a little bit. It doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. What I'm really looking at here is the moon's influence coming in about midday Friday, staying all day Saturday. And the influence is very much focused on the past. And before you panic is in opposition with Pluto, which is focused on finances. So when I say before you panic, this is not necessarily family stuff. This has to do with financial stuff. So there's a couple of different things that I feel coming up from this. One, some old fears coming up, emotional responses to either clients or the lack thereof. It's that old fear of I'm not going to make any money and I'm going to fail kind of a thing coming up with this moon. So be aware of that and try really, really hard not to allow your brain to entertain those thoughts because it's not good for you. Okay. As we move into, well, wait a minute. On the flip side, before we move into the next day, on the flip side, the moon's trine with Neptune. Neptune's focus is on career. Now, on one hand, Neptune is all about intuition. So using your intuition to read people, using your intuition to come up with creative ideas to maybe generate more clientele or to get old clients to be new clients again, things like that. Frankie's like, open the door and let me in. I'm knocking on the door, open the door and let me in. She said she will plop these ideas in your head too. You're a partnership. She says you are a partnership. Now we're moving into Saturday and things lighten up a little bit. The moon's still there. We're still focused on the past, but we're also focused on how your mind works. And actually, that's what Leo's focus really is on how your mind works. And we've talked about this for years, and you are doing such a great job in terms of mindset. It's just identifying when you fall back into those old habits. Sometimes we don't identify that right away and it kind of stays there for a while and then your brain goes, well, see, you forgot to do it anyways. You might as well just stay here. And it's about avoiding that trap. So the more you're mindful of it, the easier it is to avoid those traps. The moon square with Uranus right at the end of the week creates a little bit of a challenge, an old challenge that we've dealt with a long time, that lack of support, nobody being there to support you in terms of what you're doing. I do see this sort of taking place because of a situation which could involve your family, yes. But if we are to flip that into the positive, the moon's trine with Venus and Jupiter, which is focused on career as well as support system. Venus is all about creativity. And I really feel like maybe you need to find a more creative ways of finding a support system. So maybe changing what that looks like. It's not necessarily a loving and the word keep wanting to say embracing, but that's not accepting, a loving and accepting mother and father. That, okay, maybe that's what it should be. Maybe looking at it more as a group of people that support you in some way. I'm your support system. I don't support you in the same way that your parents should, but I support you in some way. And looking at the people that you do have around and identifying small ways that they support you do help you to sort of shift that around a little bit in terms of the mindset. But I am also seeing support coming up around work. There's this situation. It's like somebody standing up for you. And I don't really feel it's because you're being attacked necessarily. It's like there was a situation we were talking about with a collar guy who was always, you were saying you need to do your job, don't give me that, that's your job to do, kind of a thing. I feel like somebody is really stepping up in that area to support or back up why that is important. And it could be with that situation or it could be with a different one, but I keep getting the words standing behind you, supporting you. So I'm not 100% sure what that means. Outside of, I really feel like there's somebody that is stepping up to support expanding your clientele or your reach or something, and that this slowdown is happening for a reason as these adjustments are being made, if that makes sense. So we're dealing with things being kind of slow and weird this week, and next week you'll kind of understand why there's these sort of changes, I guess, that are coming up that I think in many ways will make things a lot easier, but I also feel that in the beginning, it's not necessarily going to look like that. It sort of looks like it just screwed everything up, if that makes sense. The rest of the week, up until the weekend and the moon comes in there, is pretty smooth sailing. It's very much focused on mindset, keeping a positive mindset as much as you can. Sometimes you have to say it even if you don't feel it. I know that situation where that comes up for me a lot. Anywho, that is what I have for you this week. And I'm moving on to Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Focus is on the mind and how the mind works and how you think. And there's no planets to influence that until Friday when the moon comes in and fucks everything up. Right at the end of the week, too. I always think that that's kind of a stinker when that happens. I mean, everybody's got to take a bite out of that bullet, but well, I guess there really is no good time to screw everything up, is there? Because, you could screw everything up at work and that just makes work more difficult, or you could screw it up while you're supposedly relaxing on the weekend and that just screws up your relaxation of the weekend, but at least your work didn't get screwed up. I don't know. I'm babbling on and on about stupidity right now. And you know why? Because I really feel this week first thing that comes up is it's like I literally see you rolling your eyes and going, why are people so stupid? It's like it's painful sometimes, especially around a person that you've told and told and told. They keep having the same question to be told. I'm going to give you kudos for keeping your cool in this situation because I know how hard it is. I know you're working really hard to do it. I know. And honestly, what's funny about that to me, and one of the things that I've done in the past, and I am almost positive that you're doing right now, as a matter of fact, is I use my mind to be able to deal with that situation. And when I'm frustrated or angry about a situation, in my head, I am literally beating this person or smacking them around or breaking everything inside or just having this extremely violent temper tantrum, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, but it makes me feel better. I can work through my anger over the situation and then kind of sort of let it go and be done with it. And it just does make things a lot easier from then on out. And I feel like you're going to be using this a lot. And the only downside to using this a lot is you don't want your brain to just automatically go there either. So make sure that you counterbalance that with meditation, something that's a little bit more positive, things like that. It's in some way to be able to compartmentalize those two things. So the violent angry doesn't seem to be the way you're thinking all the time, if that makes sense, because it can be that can happen very easily. Trust me. Trust me on that. The moon's coming into your sign Friday and Saturday, so we're literally gonna just end the week with this little bit of a nightmare. And the moon's focus is on the past as it comes into your sign, moving into opposition with Pluto, which is focused on finances. So I really do see this as one of those instances where it's one of those irritating money issues that just comes up every now and then. Like having to renew your license. Okay, it's not that much money, I get it, but sometimes renewing your license comes up when you just don't have anything extra to give, and that is a big problem, unfortunately. So in that sense, um it's just one of those annoying things that comes up every now and then in life, and you have to deal with it. You have to come up with for the money with this, and it's annoying, and you're gonna have your little party, and then you're gonna get over it like we always do, because there's nothing we can do about it, right? The good news is the moon's trine with Neptune's focus is on career, and I really feel that this is sort of a magical um pairing for you that day, because it is Friday, assuming you are working, using your intuition to understand where people are coming from rather than reacting to who they are in the moment. Actually, how helpful it is because you do it all the time. I just feel that it is so much more difficult when you are currently frustrated. So you have to work a little bit harder to remind yourself to do this, if that makes sense. So, which I know you can. Friday, the moon moves into a square with Uranus. Uranus is all about your support system. In some cases, it's all about a situation that occurs that sort of puts you in that mind spin of course, I'm there for everybody and nobody's there for me when I need them, blah blah blah. And when you say I'm always there for everybody and nobody's there for me, you're actually focusing on like one or two people, right? Not everybody, but just these one or two people. So you just want to be aware of whether or not you are going to extremes, or having extreme emotional reactions. The moon is in your sign, so that kind of stuff can happen. The moon's trines with Jupiter and Venus. Venus actually is also focused on your support system, and it's all about getting creative. And I really feel that what this means for you is looking outside of your normal support system, because the support that you may be looking for isn't necessarily going to come from your normal support system. They are not going to be able to help you make this decision without their own opinion attached to it. So going outside of your support system will actually give you a clearer opinion that doesn't have any of their opinions in it. That just came from an old lady sitting in a rocking chair, crocheting or knitting, just literally sitting there, and she's rocking and she's crocheting and she's just looking, and she just said that. She almost looks like the quintessential granny, like in the Bugs Bunny cartoons. Granny, I think her name was just Granny. Anyways, she just has that sort of granny look. Okay, that makes any sense. Old-fashioned granny, I guess. So yeah, maybe a little bit emotional at the end of the week. Up until that point, things are running fairly smoothly. I do still continue to see a lot of back and forth in terms of making a decision. I mean, I feel like you've really made the decision. It's more of a back and forth on how you're going to deal with the changes, I guess, if that makes sense. And you got to put it down and you got to turn it off. You'll deal with it the way you need to deal with it when you deal with it. Worrying about how that's going to happen is not helping you. In fact, it's just making you exhausted. So just stop. And that's what I have for you. And I'm going to move on to Linda. Hi, Linda. Focus is on the home this week. No planets influencing Virgo. And that will change next week when the moon comes in. So get everything done that you need to get done this week. So it's not infiltrated by the moon. I mean, something's going to be infiltrated by the moon. It's not like you're going to take a day off for it or anything, but just to make things as easy as possible. That would be great, especially since the moon, when it does come in next week, is going to move into opposition with a planet focused on career. You want to kind of focus on that and not have to focus on the home necessarily, at least as much as possible. I'm seeing a couple of different things coming up. And the first thing that I'm being shown is there's this one thing, and you just can't make a decision. You keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you're literally driving yourself nuts doing this to back and forth and back and forth. You gotta stop and stop thinking about it. What makes the most sense? What feels like it makes the most sense? I feel like sometimes you have to yank yourself out of that. And it's not because you can't make a decision. I mean, you make decisions all the time. Sometimes it's over the little things that could be silly things even. And I want to say that the reason why this happens, or this happens at very specific times, and in those times, something is making it feel like you don't have control. And when that feeling gets like deep down to your toes in there and it starts to feel really real, you sort of almost nitpick the little things, if that makes sense. And it's that nitpicking of the little things that's the clue that you've got to take a few minutes to understand what this deep thing is and come to terms with it, if that makes sense. The quicker you do that, the easier it's going to be. So I see that sort of coming up. Because I feel this out of control thing tends to happen when there's a lot going on. Like this is way more than your plate can handle, and you're trying really hard not to spill food all over the floor as you're walking the tightrope across the room with it. That's how this week feels off and on, if that makes sense. The other thing that it keeps coming up, this is so weird, okay? This is just so weird, but I literally see like frustration over a car that doesn't fit in a garage. And I don't think this is a literal thing. I mean, I'll laugh if it is. I don't think this is a literal, your car doesn't fit in your new garage. I feel this has something to do with not being able to make things fit where you want them. And so I sort of see a purging taking place in a sense because of that. Not saying you're getting rid of your car or anything like that, but maybe getting rid of things that you're trying to put in the garage so that the car fits, kind of a thing. So again, I'm not 100% sure if this is a literal that your garage is too small for your car, or if this is more of metaphorically, because this also could have to do with your schedule as well. And that the things that are important things that you have going on, there are other things they're just not fitting into that may need to be moved and or passed on to somebody else. So that is what I have for you this week. And I'm going to move on to Matalyn. Hi, darling. No planets in Virgo this week. Moon's coming in next week, so we'll just deal with next week, right? And this week, not deal with that. So with nothing to influence you, focus is on the home and okay. I actually see a couple of things coming up this week. First of all, I don't know why, but your grandma keeps coming to me and saying, just because you're in your room doesn't mean you can hide from me. And okay, there's two things coming out of that. One, I'm recalling you hearing noises, just random noises, in different places, in different rooms, and it's semi freaking you out, and you know it's her, but you're still kind of freaking out, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that, you know, it's dumb to freak out or anything like that. It's just, it is her. And I think that what's making you freak out is you want to be sure it's her and it's not somebody else. And the truth is, I'm not saying that that this has never happened before, but it's happening a lot now. It is absolutely her. And around the times that your mind has like a billion questions for her, that's when she's going to make the most noise. She's trying to get your attention because your head has got so much going on that she can't get through, I guess, if that makes sense. Also, she is saying that you asked her advice and she gave you a clue. And you know that she gave you a clue. It was the first thing that you thought of was she gave you a clue. So she said, this is your confirmation. Yes, that is the clue. And but I don't think that the clue really answers the question, if that makes sense. The spirits joke, by the way, happens to all of us. The answer to the question is you need to do what your heart tells you to do. what you feel is best, and not what you do not let fear dictate your decision. Okay. There's that. I like how she showed me you hiding in your room, though. I don't think you're really doing that, but it was just kind of funny. The other thing that she's showing me is butterflies. I have a frog in front of my house, by the way. I don't know if you heard about that. Actually, I haven't heard him in a while, but he just showed up like out of nowhere, and he and Daniel had a full-on conversation. Daniel sat out there and said ribbit, and then the frog ribbited back, and I mean, this literally went on for like 5 minutes. I was listening from the bathroom. It's hilarious. But she's showing me butterflies for you, and butterfly kisses. She's giving you butterfly kisses. But I feel like butterflies are also something that she's using as a symbol to identify herself to you. So that is what I have for you, my dear. And I am going to move on to Theresa, and focuses on those you love this week. I feel I feel conflicted. I feel like I don't want to say that you are conflicted. I feel that the issue is that I want to say there's guilt, if that makes sense. I feel like you are in a great space right now. You're in a space that you couldn't possibly imagine a year ago. I mean, you wanted to be in that space and all that. It's almost like you can't believe you're in it, if that makes sense. And yet you have mixed feelings. I feel that you have been missing Scott a lot recently, and there's a little bit of guilt about that. Like, how could you be harping back on that when things are so great? You know, the truth is, you're not harping on anything. Things happen. You miss people, not situations. You miss people. And you miss the good things about those people, and when they're no longer around. And I know it's not just Scott, I know your son has a lot to do with this as well. It doesn't mean you refuse to enjoy life either. It means that you are still grieving, and that process takes a very long time, in many cases the rest of your life. So I'm just going to ask you to put the guilt down. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I think you'll feel a lot better if you do. Just saying. Because you deserve to be happy, regardless of the circumstances around that, if that makes sense. We do continue to have an influence of Ceres in retrograde this week in Libra, which is focused on home. And Libra's focus on those you love. And Ceres is a nurturing influence. So to be retrograde, it's almost like I'm taking that nurturing away. I want to be nurtured, not the other way around. And yet focuses on those you love. And you're a very nurturing person, being the Libra that you are. And there's a bit of conflict there too. So I actually kind of see a lot of conflict around you, not around you in your environment, but there's some internal conflict going on inside of Theresa, and I feel like that's not a bad thing. this conflict is what's needed in order to release things that are no longer serving you. So old fears about relationships and the horrible things that took place before, you're releasing the fears of that happening in this relationship, um by sort of going through that. You do need to lay down a time limit on that, and you do need to release it, actively release it in the end. You don't just release things without knowing it. It doesn't work that way. I so wish it did. It would make things so much easier. But actively releasing it and saying, I'm not going to allow this situation that happened rule or create fear in this relationship, the current relationship that I'm in, things like that. So it helps you to work through those things without those things just sort of ruling your whole world, your whole existence, if that makes sense, because that's torture and you're missing out on the fun by torturing yourself. That's just not good. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. Moving on to Regina. We have no planets in Scorpio this week. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule. It seems a little boring. Actually, let's just look at that word for a minute. Boring. I think that word boring is coming up for a reason, because things maybe have been a little bit boring lately. Now, honestly, sometimes boring is cool. I mean, my life lately, I could use a little boring, honestly. And then I'll say that, and then it will get boring, and then I'll be like, oh my God, I can't stand it. It's boring. I think as human beings, we are just never happy with what we have. But also I kind of feel like fixed signs, and Scorpio is a fixed sign, have a tendency to uh fall into like a routine, which can very easily turn into a rut very quickly. Sometimes maybe not quickly, but over time it's just like, I can't do the same thing and deal with the same people, and over and over and over again, where it just continues to feel like you're doing the same routine all the time. So I feel like, really, if anything is going to be prominent this week, that's something that's coming up, is just wanting to make changes. And you don't have to make drastic changes. Sometimes small changes to a schedule, doing things a little bit differently, adding just a little something in there, it really does make all the difference in the world when you're feeling like bored. um it does make a huge difference, really. Also, I'm being told to tell you, and I'm sure this might be a little difficult depending on where you are, if it's really cold and snowing and nobody wants to be outside when it's really cold and snowing, but I'm being told to tell you, you need fresh air. A lot of times I'm being shown that you spend a lot of time in here, and sometimes it just gets to the point where it's just too much, and just a short walk for me just clears that right out. It's like the air just goes through one ear and out the other when I'm out there, and just whoosh, the oxygen moving through my body just sort of moves it along also, and I don't feel like I'm racing or stuck in that loop, going over something over and over and over again. So I'm just being told to tell you that if you can, it doesn't take a lot of exercise, just a little bit to get the blood moving, and you'll clear your head in the process, and which will make it easier for you to focus on what you need to do to fix the situation, because you're taking yourself out of that emotional loop of the situation. So that is what I have for you, Regina. And I'm going to move on to Theresa number 2, Theresa Sheppard. No planets in Scorpio. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule this week. I actually see a possible cancellation in your schedule, or something that frees up time for you to do something special for you, if that makes sense, or just something that's out of the ordinary. Like you are somewhere, don't have a lot of time to do, any kind of sightseeing or anything like that, and something gets rescheduled and you have nothing better to do than to go wander around the hotel where you are, and just have some time to yourself. And I think, actually, I really feel that you love doing that. Traveling by yourself is not a difficulty for you. Being by yourself is not a difficulty for you. In fact, in some cases you enjoy it a little bit. I think sometimes it's a little boring, but overall, for the most part, I think you really enjoy it. Maybe even more than you want to let on sometimes, to the people that you love anyways. So I do see that it's an opportunity to kind of take some time to yourself, to explore, have a little adventure, kind of sort of shake things up a bit, this week. I'm also being shown, I'm seeing a car and a jack. um that could be two things. It could be tires, it could be brakes. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, if you are renting cars this week, make sure that you check those things before you leave to make sure that there's no issues. Or if it's your car and you suspect at all, you should check. There's your confirmation. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. And I'm going to move on to Sheri. Sagittarius is the in-between focuses this week, for the most part. Well, moves into in-between focuses. We're still focused on relationships. And this is the last week that we're focused on relationships. I just have to say that I need some water. I just have to say, bold to say, your mom here is here right now. Your mom's saying that you have to look at a relationship. No, give me the right words to say. I know exactly where she's going with it, but I can't put it into words. Love is sacrifice. And the biggest act of love to another person is to sacrifice what you love for them. I thought it was really ironic, actually. The last time I was up there, when I sat and talked to your dad, and your dad told me that he used to drink and that he was not a nice person when he would drink, and that your mom kicked him out and wouldn't take him back until he stopped drinking, and he didn't drink anymore after that. Or he drank very little. And that he did not begrudge her drink every now and then, because that had nothing to do with him. That was her. And he had a problem and she didn't, and he didn't want to infiltrate into that problem. And I've heard you say my whole existence with you, which is about almost 30 years now, that you are just like them, that you want to be just like them, that you want your relationship to be just like theirs, sorry. And yet, it's hard for you to give up that one thing that is destroying you personally, physically, and your relationships. And your mother is saying it is going to destroy every single one of them. Your mom had no idea while she was here that things had gotten as bad as they have, but they have. They have. I don't care how you justify it, they have. I'm not happy being the person that has to be the one to tell you this. I'm not happy being the person being the one that is the bridge in this conversation. Because never in a million years would I have ever wanted to be in the situation of having to tell you what to do, knowing that you do not like to be told what to do, and knowing that I don't like to be told what to do. But I also don't want to see you destroy absolutely everything around you. But I also know that that's what's going to happen. And your mom doesn't want to see it either. And I don't know what else to say about it, because I know I can't make you do anything. You have to make that choice for yourself. But she's not wrong. Love is giving up things for the people that you love, even when you don't want to. And we've done it so many times. There's no reason why this one should be different. I love the way her love feels. It's like she's wrapping you in a big old poofy blanket like a marshmallow. And that's what she does to you every day. She says she tucks you in every night, just like you were little. She says, but don't make me smack you around, daughter. Don't make me do it. Oh, and she will too, by the way. She will. That's what I have. Okay, moving on to Peg. Focus is on relationships this week. No planets influencing Sagittarius this week either. This is the last week, really, where we're focusing on relationships. Maybe not the last one. There might be some focus on it next week, actually. Come to think of it. No, this is the last week. Never mind. I know what I'm talking about, I swear. Where we're focused on relationships. Actually, for you this week, I kind of see this playing out as a check-in on you. A personal relationship with yourself, check-in, making sure that you're sticking with your health goals, your integrity goals, not questioning your integrity when I say that, but I think we all kind of sometimes wander off that path occasionally. We just need to check in and make sure that we're either doing that or not doing that, I guess. Um, I also feel that it's a really good opportunity this week to check in. I get mental health check-in, and I feel like that's coming up for a couple of different reasons. I kind of feel like maybe the last few months have been a little bit difficult, and so doing a mental health check-in and just making sure that you're not continuing to hold on to grudges and things like that, is not a bad thing. Maybe even doing a check-in with somebody, whether it's a therapist or another medium that is somebody that you can talk to kind of sort of, put things back into perspective. I think we all need that from time to time. And I think that, I mean, me personally, being a professional doing this for other people, I have to have that. Otherwise it just gets very overwhelming. It feels like I'm carrying my crap and everybody else's crap with me, no matter how much I ground and bubble and connect and disconnect and release and all of those things. It just does get heavy over time, and the world in general is just a crapshoot. It's just so negative all the time, or so stupid all the time. Stupidity used to be entertaining to me, and now it's just like, it's painful. It's painful. Where are we going when nobody is smart? Kind of a thing. Um, so I feel like really this week is all about just taking care of you. It's sort of cleansing everything that you picked up on along the way. It's doing a full-on release, maybe even a spa treatment. Go and get a massage if you can. Any kind of just self-care seems like it's really important this week for whatever reason, and I feel like there's a few different reasons there going on. So that's one thing. The other thing is I'm kind of feeling like I'm just feeling like there's somebody who, okay, I'm getting the words old argument. And what I mean by that is I see a male, and I feel like this is somebody that you don't see very often, but you don't really get along with all that great anyway. So it's better that you don't see them that often. But and as soon as you do, it's like you're right back to having the old argument again. And I'm just being told to tell you that you're the one that changes whether you have the old argument or not. So when the guy approaches and starts the argument, it's up to you to end the argument in whatever way you're pulled to end that argument in, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And that's what I have for you. And finally, we are at Mama Sheri, and the focus is on relationships this week, and there's no planets influencing that. So, there's a couple of things here. First of all, I'm being told I'm given the word surprise change in a relationship. Um, some people would automatically go to something, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I almost feel like this is a good thing. It's sort of like leveling up in a relationship. And I get the word breakthrough also. So this could be with one of your daughters, or it could be with a family member, I should say. It could be with a friend. I'm leaning more towards family than I am with a friend, but this is just like it's a breakthrough. Okay, it's one of those light bulb moments, and I feel a lot of pride coming from you in this particular instance, because it's almost, it's not that you gave up on the person or never thought this would happen, but it's almost like you never thought this would happen. So you're really excited about it, if that makes sense, which is good. The other thing that I'm picking up around you is I feel like I feel like your walls are closing in on you. And I mean, you love your house and you love your space and you're very comfortable in it. I just feel like sometimes it feels like you spend way too much time in it. And I think that this time of year, the weather has a lot to do with that also. So I just feel this restlessness, like you just have got to get out of the house and somewhere in the world. Um, Even if you can walk the ground, that would help. I mean, it's exercise, because I feel that that's part of why the walls are closing in on you, is you need exercise. You need to get your heart moving a little bit. I'm not saying that there's an issue or anything, but that just, it does help, right? Um if you can, I mean, weather permitting, of course, depending on what kind of weather you guys are dealing with out there. The other thing is, I feel like part of this is stemming from the weather, because you just can't get out as often as you would like to, because of the situation with the weather. So I'm not saying, obviously, that this is a situation that can be fixed in terms of you getting out of the house more often, but there are small things that you can do that will help it feel like you're getting out of the house more often, because it's not just boredom staying at home. I do feel a lot of it has to do with just needing to exercise, to get your blood moving, kind of a thing. Also, this blood moving and exercise is important, not just because you need to get outside. I mean, the fresh air is important. It has to do with up here too. I feel like you're racing a lot this week, and I'm not sure why. I don't really need to know why. Um, this is not normal for you. And what I mean by this is not normal for you is, I mean that normally you're on top of your racing, and for whatever reason, this form of racing just keeps taking over. So the sooner you can get a handle on that, the easier it will be, if that makes sense. And your cat is still cute, by the way. That's what I have for you, and I love you. And that's what I have for everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out for the readings. Oh my God. You know what I did is I completely was not looking at my list, and I skipped over Jillian, and I'm so glad that I caught that right before I left. So let me focus on Jillian here really quick, because I'm so sorry. I love you. It's not, don't take it personally. Okay, your aunt is losing her flipping mind. Okay, it's gonna take me a few times not looking at the list to remember that you're in there. So let me focus on Jillian. There's this thing that you started doing every day. The vision that I'm getting of it is, it's like you have a picture of your dad and you talk to him. Good morning, Dad. Good night, Dad. Love you. Anyways, he loves this tribute to him that happens every day. He loves it, and he just wants you to know that he sees it. I mean, he sees it, but he sees it and he appreciates it and he loves it. Um, he misses your laugh, he says. when you would get the giggles and really, really, really just start laughing. I'm sure it feels like it's been a long time, actually. Um, but he's also saying sometimes you see funny things in things that aren't there. It's totally him. He's also reminding me of that room that smelled like fart all of a sudden. Why they can't even grow out of this farting thing when they die is ridiculous. Okay, because my dad's there too, and nothing has changed there. I kind of am picking up on focus is still on your day-to-day schedule. I kind of feel like I'm picking up on like a situation with somebody that your automatic reaction is to have words with them, if that makes sense, like to fight with them. Um, but I also see you stopping and going, you know what? It's not worth the breath. Because in this situation, it's just not worth the breath. It's like the person is never going to get it. So why bother trying to explain it again? Um, I think instead of why bother trying to explain it again, I think that it's more find different words or a different way to explain it so that they can understand depending on the situation. Um, and the person, of course. But I feel that this is somebody who, if you explain it in a different way, it will make more sense to them. This is not somebody who, it doesn't matter how you explain it, they're just not going to get it kind of a situation. So it's about choosing your words um, in order to promote understanding rather than allowing the ego to speak because the ego needs to be right. If that makes sense. It can be a gray area. If it doesn't make sense, I'll explain it better at some point. Just let me know if it doesn't make sense. But basically when we're fighting with people, we're communicating from the ego and our need to be right. When we are trying to explain where we're coming from, we're communicating from the heart and not necessarily in a defensive way. Once you get defensive, that's the ego and not the heart. So the more you can allow the heart to communicate without over emotionally communicating, because sometimes that can be difficult for people to understand also. But if you communicate from the heart, more times than not, they understand what you're saying rather than get on the defensive because they feel like you're attacking them, and vice versa, right? Because you've had that kind of communication directed at you, I'm sure more than once, and your automatic reaction is to get defensive, and it's just an argument. So I'm going to leave it with that, and I'm sorry that I skipped you earlier, and I'm telling you it's just because your aunt is losing her marbles. That's true. I love you. That's what I have for you. And now that's what I have for everybody. So thanks for hanging out for the readings. I'm Melissa Bruce, the heavy metal psychic. And because I'm already losing my mind, I'm obviously done. So I will see you guys next week. Do whatever you can to make it a great week, everybody.